Hi, so today I'm going to be talking about Che Guevara. So I'm going to be talking about his rise to prominence, I guess, and a bit what he did. I'm not going to talk about how he died or anything, and his legacy. That's probably going to be for another video. But yeah, let's get started. So, by the way, there's going to be some words in Spanish. I'll translate them, but my accent is going to go all over the place. So, Che Guevara, he was born Ernesto Guevara de la Serna, and the nickname Che Guevara came from how in Argentina they sometimes refer to people as Che, so like that's how he got the nickname. And he lived from June 14th, 1928 to October 9th, 1967. He was famous for being this really prominent tactician of guerrilla warfare, a really prominent communist figure in the Cuban Revolution, and, well, a martyr, an image of radicalism, especially leftist radicalism, and anti-imperialism in general. Especially his martyrdom came after his execution. Well, yeah. So, his early life. He was the eldest of 5 children and came from a middle-class family of Spanish-Irish descent. He was asthmatic, but was an excellent athlete and scholar. And this is one thing I did not know about. He went to medical school and he graduated in 1953. Like, I would never have thought Che Guevara was a medical student and completed his medical studies. In his early days, he spent his time traveling around Latin America and just looking around and seeing how Latin America society was in the 1950s and 1960s. And, well, it wasn't all happiness and joy because, well, Che, he observed how it was a huge amount of poverty and, well, yeah, poverty and the culture, and it needed help. And these observations, this poor state Latin America was in, it gave him revolutionary thoughts. He thought Latin America was this cultural and economic entity which needed to be liberated, which would need intercontinental strategy. So he couldn't just be him and a group of people. He needed support. So he decided to go around Latin America, but this time with a critical eye, and went on a 9-month journey with Alberto Granada in December 1951. He began his journey on a motorcycle, which was then abandoned, and they went through Argentina, Chile, Peru, Colombia, and, well, he went to Venezuela, but he went there alone. So I don't know what happened to Granado. No, Alberto Granada, no. Alberto Granado. There's a difference. And then after Venezuela, he returned to Argentina. So during these travels, he wrote and kept a journal called the Motorcycle Diaries, Notes on a Latin American Journey, which I do believe were published in 2003, and they were, and there was a movie made of it, 2004, I think it was. And, well, yeah. And then that same year, 1953, wherein he finished his medical studies, he went with Jacobo Arbenz. No, he didn't went with Jacobo Arbenz. No, he went to Guatemala, in which Jacobo Arbenz, he was the head of a regime, which had, it was a progressive regime that was attempting to bring about this new social revolution. So Arbenz, he was later overthrown in 1954, and he was overthrown in a coup supported by the CIA. Yes, the United States Central Intelligence Agency, I think it is. Anyway, the CIA. Guevara, he saw this and said, I do not like this. I do not like how the US is always going to oppose any leftist government. So he decided to become a very dedicated Marxist in Guatemala. So, the Cuban Revolution and his role in it, because Che Guevara, he did rise to prominence because of his role in the Cuban Revolution. So, he left to Mexico after the Guatemala thing, and he met two brothers named Raúl and Fidel Castro. These two brothers, along with a group of people, they were prepared to overthrow the Cuban dictator Fulgencio Batista. And Che Guevara and the group of people with Raúl and Fidel Castro, they joined the 26th of July movement, which eventually landed 81 men in the Cuban province of Oriente on the 2nd of December 1956. Not the 26th of July, the 2nd of December. That can get confusing, but he joined the 26th of July movement, which landed 81 men in the Cuban province of Oriente on the 2nd of December 1956. Okay? So, this, it's definitely like this, but I kind of see the similarities between this and the Bay of Pigs invasion. They're nowhere near the same thing, no way, but it's a failed invasion of Cuba, and I just see similarities. I mean, the 26th of July movement, they landed 81 men, just 81, and many of them were killed, and those that weren't killed were wounded. Che Guevara, he was wounded in this, and the Bay of Pigs was a whole lot of fiasco, but it's just two failed invasions of Cuba. So they eventually reached Sierra Maestra, and there they became this nucleus of this new guerrilla army. I do believe, I may be wrong, but because, yes, I think that guerrilla, not gorilla like the animal, guerrilla is like the word Spanish guerrilla, which does mean small war. So I do believe that that's where it comes from. Like guerrilla means small war, so guerrilla warfare is like small tactics, not large like armies. I think it's where it comes from. I may be wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong. He actually joined this guerrilla warfare group as the doctor. Like I don't forget, he had a medical degree, but then he also started training in weapons use, and he became so skilled with the guns and with weaponry in general that he became Castro's executioner. Well, not at Castro's, like the executioner of this guerrilla warfare, this guerrilla group, and became Castro's most trusted aide. Well, his role and his group's role, they seized weapons from Batista's forces and won support and troops for the guerrilla movement. He wrote this text that's called Pasajes de la Guerra Revolucionaria, which means passages of the Revolutionary War. Pasajes de la Guerra Revolucionaria. He wrote it during this period. Then Castro's troops entered Havana on January 18th, 1959, and Che Guevara, he said, well, I'm going to set up the La Cabaña prison. Rather than a prison, it's where enemies of the revolution were executed, but hey, prison, execution center, they're the same thing. And, well, by this point, Guevara, he was now fully a Cuban citizen, because he did help overthrow the Cuban government, so Fidel Castro just gave him Cuban citizenship. And he established himself quite firmly in the Cuban government. Well, Che Guevara, he obviously opposed all forms of imperialism and neocolonialism, and continuously attacked U.S. foreign policy. He wasn't a big fan of it, as you can probably tell by this point. Well, he had really a wide range of roles in Cuban politics. He was the chief of the industrial department of the National Institute of Agrarian Reform, and president of the National Bank of Cuba, in which he famously signed all checks and everything with Che. Not even his surname, just Che. And he was also Minister of Industry. I mean, the guy had quite a lot of power. Well, he defined Cuba's policies in many speeches and writings, most notably El Socialismo y el Hombre en Cuba, so socialism and, I think it's, in English, I think it's Man and Socialism in Cuba, but yeah, El Socialismo y el Hombre en Cuba, and La Guerra de Guerrillas, so guerrilla warfare. Like, La Guerra de Guerrillas, it's kind of more catchy because it's La Guerra de Guerrillas, so the war of smaller wars, i.e. guerrilla warfare. And here he outlines 3 things. Well, first of all, he said that guerrilla forces could, in theory, defeat the army. If they join together and they have effective techniques, they could overthrow the army. Second, that for a revolution to come about, not all conditions have to be present, because some of these conditions that make revolution perfect can be brought about by said revolution. And then third, that the underdeveloped Latin American countryside was, well, perfectly suited for combat, for army combat. So he had this vision of a socialist citizen which would not work for himself or for his own profit, but for society. And he did embody this new socialist ideas. He wasn't a perfect socialist, but he did sleep in his office, and in his free time, in his day off, he would work in a sugarcane field. Then came the whole Cuba-USSR alliance, and when Cuba essentially became a client state of the USSR, Che Guevara was disheartened. And then when the USSR removed all missiles in Cuba without the approval of Cuba, without consulting the Cuban leadership, this was during the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, well, Che Guevara, he felt really betrayed and turned to the People's Republic of China with their leader Mao Zedong, and turned to them as an example. And that's it. That is the rise of Che Guevara. I mean, it's really not that. I mean, the interesting part of Che Guevara is his guerrilla warfare tactics and how he maintained power. But to get there, you need to know how he rose to power and his role. His role in the Cuban Revolution and in guerrilla warfare. And guerrilla warfare is terrifying. Vietnam was fought with guerrilla warfare. And it's really hard because it gives all the advantage to people who know the terrain. So yeah, I don't want to say anything else. I mean, Che Guevara is really interesting. And probably in a few weeks I will do the rest of Che Guevara. So that's pretty much it. I'm not going to say anything else. So yeah, thank you for watching. Bye.